Hello, friends. Welcome to Word Study Episode 2. Today, I'd like to talk about a topic that has been on my mind recently. Probably it's been on my mind so much recently because I'm not home. I'm not doing what I usually do. I'm usually at home. I have one job. I don't have an internet job, so I'm not working here right now. I'm in Ukraine, by the way, for those of you who don't know. I'm out of the country, and I'm kind of living here just for the sake of time. I'm not going to go into the details, but this is something that's been kind of on my mind recently because when you don't do what you usually do, when the pattern of your day isn't the typical pattern of your day when you're at home, things kind of start to get interesting because when you work on a regular basis, you're kind of you're filled. Your mind is filled. You sort of you have a purpose. You have a reason to get up in the morning. You have to set an alarm clock. You have to figure these things out. Right now, I'm living on a sort of schedule where I don't have to do that, and I've noticed that if you live like this for quite a long enough time, you start to have a crisis of purpose. You don't know exactly what you're living for. And what I've noticed is that we fill our day. I mean, I fill my day. It doesn't matter whether I'm here or I'm in America. I try to fill my day with something that I feel like is important, something that I want to do. I want to enjoy experiences. I want to do something that's fun, so to speak, entertaining. And that's kind of how we decide what we do. We work really because we need to make money, because that's kind of the way we're going to live. And it's very circular. And if you think about it, actually, the Bible really talks about this a lot. So what I've been thinking actually about is Ecclesiastes. I'm going to kind of go through the entire book, but I'm going to do it really fast, and I just kind of want to get the entire point. Sometimes you need to read something really quickly to get the whole point of what's being said, and that's kind of what I want to do here. And the book starts this way. Chapter 1, verse 2 says this: "Vanity of vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. What does man gain by all the toil at which he toils under the sun? A generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. The sun rises, the sun goes down, and hastens to the place where it rises. The wind blows to the south and goes around to the north, and around goes the wind, and on its circuits the wind returns." This really shows us, it continues, but it really shows us kind of the circular pattern of life. We work to relax, and then after we relax, we want to go back to work. It's circular. It seems constantly this kind of over and over and over again pattern, and that's the way we live. And we start to I think everybody gets to this point where they start to think about, what is the purpose I'm living for? And everybody kind of comes to their own decision of that, of what their purpose of the purpose of their own life. And we want to do the thing that will fulfill our purpose, what we think is our purpose. We want to do that thing, right? So whatever hobbies we pick up, whatever things we try to do, like the reason why we're alive, the reason why we think we are alive, that defines what we do, the way we spend our days, whether we spend our days sitting behind a computer playing video games, or we play golf on a regular basis, or we hang out with friends, or we go to church, and we hang out with friends. There's a bunch of different things that we can do, but we decide all of this kind of either consciously or unconsciously, oftentimes, by what we understand the purpose of our life is, what we need to do in life. And the preacher, who we understand is Solomon, that writes Ecclesiastes, actually puts everybody's purpose under this skeptical question mark. because he says, you might decide that your work, your career is the most important thing that you do. You might want to become successful, like the purpose of your life is to be successful. Maybe the purpose of your life is some sort of experiences that you want to have. Maybe it's some sort of joy. Well, let's put all of that under a question mark. And he points out, really, I think we can put it, we can kind of shorten it down to three things that he puts under a question mark. And he asks us, he forces us to answer these questions. And so here's a couple of these things that I'd like to mention, some of these questions that he pretty much, well, these kind of problems that he shows us. So the first one is, number one, he says everyone will die. He kind of puts it, he automatically gives us a dark picture. And he says everyone will die and all their works will die as well, and wisdom won't prolong their life. An example where he talks about this is in Ecclesiastes chapter 2, and in verse 12. From verse 12 onwards, he writes this: "So I turned to consider wisdom and madness and folly. For what can the man do who comes after the king? Only what has already been done. Then I saw that there is more gain in wisdom than in folly, as there is more gain in light than in darkness. The wise person has his eyes in his head, but the fool walks in darkness. And yet I perceived that the same event happens to all of them. Then I said in my heart, what happens to the fool will happen to me also. Why then have I been so very wise? And I said in my heart that this is also vanity. For of the wise as of the fool there is no enduring remembrance, seeing that in the days to come all will have been long forgotten. How the wise dies just like the fool. So I hated my life, because what is done under the sun was grievous to me, for all is vanity and a striving after the wind." What he's saying is that you, the remembrance of you, your actions, they may be remembered for a generation. Maybe they might be remembered for 2 generations if you were very successful. Maybe they might be remembered for 3 generations. But here's the problem. As the generations go on, you start to forget. I can talk to you. I can start asking you questions right now, and I can discover that you probably don't know the names of your great-great-grandparents, not even one of them. I know my great-grandparents. I know their names. I never knew them personally. But I have no idea who my great-great-grandparents are. I have no clue what their names are. I don't know where they lived. I don't know where they came from. I don't know where. I have no clue. I don't have any idea where they are from. And I have no idea what they did. I don't know what they were like. I don't know if they did anything significant in their lives. We might remember a couple people, right? Like Luther, he's still remembered. Socrates even, right? Let's go not just 500 years, let's go 2,000 years, right? Let's go Plato. Those people are remembered. But if you keep going down the line, the further we go, the less we know, and the less texts we have of these people. We don't know their wisdom. We don't know how significant they were. We find these bodies of pharaohs. We don't know if they were good, if people thought they were amazing, if they were terrible. We don't know what their position was. We don't know what happened to them. We can kind of just make assumptions, and the memory of them is gone and forgotten. But you had to be absolutely large, just amazingly famous for people in the future to possibly find out about you. But every other ordinary person is forgotten. And so what he says is, okay, all the things that you do, all the efforts that you put in, all the success that you get, it's forgotten. There's an end to it. Secondly, he says that there's injustice. He says there's injustice everywhere. The good receive evil and the evil receive good, and everyone dies at the end anyway. And both go to the same end. Look at this, Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verses 1 through 3. Solomon says this: "Again, I saw all the oppressions that are done under the sun, and behold, the tears of the oppressed, and they had no one to comfort them. On on the side of their oppressors there was power, and there was no one to comfort them. And I thought, the dead who are already dead more fortunate than the living who are still alive. But better than both is he who has not been yet who has not yet been and has not seen the evil deeds that are done under the sun. Solomon says that I see these people, I see that they're oppressed, and they don't have power in their hands. They can't do anything about it. The power is the one who oppresses them, and there's no one that can comfort them. And he says, I thought that those who are dead are luckier than they are. But he said, but even better is the one who hasn't been born yet, because he hasn't had to see this evil. And he says, look, all of this injustice. Later he says, there is the wicked who gets what belongs to the righteous. And he says, the righteous gets what belongs to the wicked. He says pretty much the wicked seem to reap what the righteous one sows, and the righteous one seems to reap what the wicked one sows. And I don't understand the injustice. It doesn't make sense. And you may try to do anything in your life. You may try to work on things in your life. You may try to be successful. And at the end, for some reason, injustice exists. Why can't everyone enjoy life like the rich man does? Why can't everyone have riches? That's a big question. Because there's people who are born into families where they can find more success than other people. There's people that have bigger and better opportunities. They're born in countries where the governments are better, where they have better opportunities, and these people don't. And he questions all these things. He says, look, we live. What do we live for? What's our purpose? If injustice exists, and if everyone dies and wisdom doesn't prolong your life, what do we do? And the third thing he says is that success in life does not so much depend on your trying very hard, but on chance. And this one we find in Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verses 13 through 17. He says this, there is a grievous evil that I have seen under the sun, riches that were, and he says this story, riches were kept by their owner to his hurt, and those riches were lost in a bad venture. And he is a father of a son, but he has nothing in his hand. As he came from his mother's womb, so he shall go again, naked as he came, and shall take nothing for his toil that he may carry away in his hand. This is also a grievous evil. Just as he came, so shall he go. And what gain is there to him who toils for the wind? Moreover, all his days he eats in darkness, in much vexation, and sickness and anger. And he says, look, there's this man, he has riches, he has honor, he has money. So he decides, I'm going to invest. I'm going to try to do something with this money. I have the possibility. And he invests his money into something that fails. And all that money that he invested, he failed with. And now he has a son, he has a family that he needs to feed. And now he is dishonored because he failed in this business. Now he can't feed his family. And now all that he has in his life is nothing. All he has is just grief. And the thing he points out here is he says the same thing will happen to him. As he was born, the same way he will go back into the grave, naked, poor, nothing behind him. What he's saying is that all of these things that he's tried to get through his life, at the end, he will still be broke. And the wild thing is, even if he kept all that money, at the end, when he dies, he's still broke. He takes none of that with him. Nothing is left into eternity. It all, poof, and it vapors away. It all turns into a wind. And what he says, in these 3 points, he says that everybody dies. No matter who you are, whether you have wisdom or don't have wisdom, you die. And injustice is everywhere. Good men receive evil things, and evil people receive good things. And at the end, everyone still dies, whether they were righteous or unrighteous. And he says that life is chance. Whether you're righteous or unrighteous, you might do all the right things and make all the right business decisions, and you may still fail. And you may make many wrong decisions, and somehow you may still end up succeeding. Most likely you won't. Only wisdom will probably get you there. But he says at the end you still die and you still take nothing with you. So what is the point of all our toiling? What is the purpose of our life? What are we living for? Are we living to build homes? Are we living to build vineyards? Are we building in our? Are we trying to build wealth in our life? Are we trying to leave a legacy? And he says, do you know that none of it will last into eternity? None of it will last, because the person before you did the same thing, the person after you will do the same thing, and everyone at the end will end up in the grave. Look at these words that he says in chapter 8. I'm going to read from verse 14. Chapter 8 from verse 14. There is a vanity that takes place on the earth, that there are righteous people to whom it happens according to the deeds of the wicked, and there are wicked people to whom it happens according to the deeds of the righteous. I said that this is also vanity, and I commend joy. For man has nothing better under the sun but to eat and drink and be joyful, for this will go with him in his toil through the days of his life that God has given him under the sun. And then he says further, when I applied my heart to know wisdom and to see the business that is done on earth, how neither day nor night one's eyes see sleep, then I saw the work of God, that man cannot find out the work that is done under the sun. However much man may toil in seeking, he will not find it out, even though a wise man claims to know it. He cannot find it out. He says that a person, he does not know what he will receive. He will work hard, be wise, and be righteous, and still seem to receive what seems to be evil. And the righteous man will work hard, and the evil man will work hard, and somehow he will receive what seems to belong to the righteous. And the conclusion that we can come to is one of two. The first conclusion we can come to is we can say, you know what? What we can do is we can just live, eat, drink, enjoy life, because you do not know when your time will come to an end, and everything that you do will perish away. That's one of the conclusions. That's what he writes. He says, when I applied my heart to know wisdom and to see the business that is done on earth, how neither day nor night do one's eyes see sleep, then I saw all the work of God, that a man cannot find it out, that the work is done. Find out the work that is done under the sun. A man cannot figure these things out. He tries to understand this with his mind, but he can't figure it out. Why do things happen the way it happens? And he says that for man has nothing better under the sun to do but to eat and drink and be joyful, for this will go with him in his toil through the days of his life that God has given him under the sun. We can make a conclusion that with all this knowledge, what we can do is just enjoy what we got and forget about everything else, because at the end, we're not going to have anything left anyway. So why? Why try to understand what God is doing? Why try to understand what's going on in this world? Why try to fight for justice? Why try to answer all these questions if at the end of the day we all die and who cares? Or we can take a different stance. And in this situation, we can look at the end of the book, and Solomon still comes to this conclusion. The end of the matter, all has been heard. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God will bring every deed into judgment with every secret thing, whether good or evil. So the question is, what will enter into eternity? What will stay? Will our businesses stay? No, they will go away. Will our success? Nope, it will go away. Will our experiences? Nope, they will go away. Will our enjoyments in all of these things? No, they will go away. But are we supposed to stop doing them? No, absolutely not. God gave this to you. God gave us this life. Why? To enjoy it. But how do we enjoy it? By fearing God. If we walk in this life with the fear of God, then we will live it to its fullest. Why? Because at the end, when everything is gone, when everything is shaken, there's one thing that will stand at the end. God. The fear of God will stay at the end. And if we fear God in our lives, then we will have lived our life with a perfect purpose. But if we have lived our lives and we have only lived it for ourselves, and we have only lived it just to fill our own mouth for the short period of time that we lived it, we will stand before God in judgment, and God will ask us, how did you live this life? Then you will not be able to tell him it was all meaningless anyway. God will tell you, you had one job. You had one duty. I didn't expect you to be a king. I didn't expect you to be successful. I didn't expect you to build up a massive amount of wealth. I didn't expect you to cure world hunger. I expected you to fear me. That was your duty. Fearing God includes loving your neighbor, loving God, doing what he has called us to do, seeking him with all our hearts and trying to find him. When we live in that direction, when we live in that way, then we will find purpose. Then we will find our lives. But if all we do is we look at the world and say, eat, drink, for tomorrow we die, then what will happen is we will stand before God and he will question us. Did you live the way that you were supposed to live? Or did you simply live for yourself? Did you pass this test? The fear of God is the most important thing. The beginning of wisdom is the fear of God. If you don't fear God, you will look at this world in a skewed way. You will say, you will make all the right conclusions. Everyone dies. You will say, evil exists and there's injustice. And you will say, there's chance. And who knows if I'll succeed in life? And your decisions might be, okay, because of all of these things, because of all of these realities, I will just live for myself. Or you will look at all of this and you will say, yes, we all die. Yes, there is injustice and evil in this world because we failed God. And you can say, yes, there is chance and it doesn't seem to go the way that we think that it should go, but God's in charge. And if we look at the world from that point of view, if we know God, if we fear God, if we revere God, then we will look at this world and we will say, yes, it is fallen, but we must fear God. Yes, we have sinned, but we must turn to him. Yes, we must live for this purpose, the purpose of fearing God, loving him, and loving our neighbor. That might sound very, like a very legalistic point of view. But the reality is that none of us are able to do this without Christ. That's why Christ came into this fallen world, unjust world of vanity and death. He died, though he then rose from the dead. He experienced injustice, just like we experience injustice. And he fell under that curse where a righteous man receives what an evil man deserved. But at that point, he reversed everything in this world. And he proved that this was not just chance, but that God was sovereignly in charge of everything in this world. He is sovereignly in charge of everything in this world. And don't look and say, Why don't I get it? Why is this world so unfair? I tried so hard. No, look at this world and say, yes, things might be unfair. Yes, it might seem wrong, but I will fear the Lord and I will follow him all the way through because he is good and his love endures forever. Therefore, your duty, oh man, is one. It's singular. It's to fear the Lord. When you fear the Lord, you will make all the correct steps. You will not live simply for yourself. You will not simply live to fulfill your own desires. You will live enjoying relationships, enjoying food and drink, enjoying your work, and you will fear the Lord and fulfill his purpose, which is the most important one. I hope that my thoughts, which are kind of everywhere, I hope that you understood them and that they came through clearly. And I pray that the Holy Spirit would bless you through this word. May God bless you. Thank you.